Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. I've been involved with Global Strategy Forum for many years, and we've always had a good turnout, but I have to say that in terms of quality, as well as numbers, this is the most distinguished turnout we've had, and it's entirely appropriate because this is the 20th anniversary lecture of the Global Strategy Forum, and really in honour of our founder, Michael Ancram, as many of us knew him, Michael Lothian as he became, and it was his idea to get this going. The first lecture was held almost exactly 20 years ago on the 9th of May 2006, and on a very tired and dated subject, which was the fork in the road, sorting out the United Kingdom's defence debacle. And it's good to see George Robertson here and his colleagues still trying to sort that out. And it's entirely a coincidence, by the way, that Michael was trying to do that 20 years ago when there was a Labour government in power, and we're trying to, George and his colleagues are trying to do it today. I'm also going to wanted to say that it's a great delight to welcome to this lecture members of Michael's family. His daughter Claire, his other daughter Mary, their husbands Nick Hurd, who many of us will know, and Zach, and a daughter, Dea. You're all very welcome. Indeed, it's an honour for all of us to be members of this wonderful, burgeoning Global Strategy Forum, which has gone from strength to strength in the period since Michael got it going. A couple of housekeeping announcements. One is, everybody knows this, but it's amazing how some people forget. Turn your phone off or put it onto silent, please. The second is the next GSF lecture will be in 2 weeks' time here on the 20th of February, when one of the people who's here already, Gordon, May, 20th of May, Gordon Correa, who everybody will know was the BBC's security and intelligence correspondent, is going to be talking about the story of Vasily Mitrokhin under the title, How One Man Tried to Kill the KGP. And so I will look forward to that very much. In terms of today's format, Michael was always absolutely insistent that these events just lasted 1 hour. Our speaker, Richard Moore, will talk for 20 minutes or so. There'll then be Q&A. If you're asking a question, please make it a question, because I will, I'm afraid, stop you if you're trying to turn it into some kind of essay. And then at 5 to 2, we'll wind up and we'll finish at 2. Now, the format, just one other thing. Richard's opening remarks are going to be filmed, and subject to just checking them afterwards, they will be put out on our website. The Q&A, you will also notice the camera people filming, but that will be off the record, and that's simply for our internal purposes. Right, it's now a great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Richard Moore. So Richard Moore, everybody know him as having been head of SIS from 2020 to 2025. I've first got to know him actually really well after I'd finished as Foreign Secretary, when I was chairman of co-chairman of the British-Turkish Forum, and in an inspired move, I assume by William Hague, Richard was translated from the intelligence service to become our ambassador in Turkey at a particularly sensitive time, and did an absolutely brilliant job, having served in Turkey many years before and speaking perfect Turkish, which enabled him to take on Turkish questioners on Turkish television live in Turkish. And Turkish, for those of you who've ever tried to learn even a word of Turkish, it's not an easy language. Had a distinguished career in SIS before he moved over to the formal diplomatic service. When he finished in Ankara as ambassador, he then became the political director in the Foreign Office. For those of you who I see Peter Ricketts nodding sagely, it's an odd title for the most important operational diplomatic post in the Foreign Office, and the poor PUS, John Kerr and Michael J are both here. Now have to keep the show on the road, but the political director works alongside the Foreign Secretary of the day on operational diplomacy, and Richard did that, and then became head of SIS, which he did in a really interesting period from 2020 to 2025. I've known a lot about Richard. I didn't know that he was born in Tripoli in Libya. Still less did I know, but he says it's absolutely fine for me to mention this, about his family's form, as we used to say in Bow Street Magistrates Court, that his grandfather, Jack Buckley, served as a soldier in the Irish Republican Army and was awarded a medal for fighting the Brits. Now, the last thing is, normally it's normal to say that one's introducing a speaker what they're going to talk about. Well, needless to say, because it's somebody who used to run a secret intelligence service, I don't know. But I'm delighted to welcome Richard.
Thank you. Well, this is the moment at which you find out whether I know what I'm talking about in any shape or form. And it's so lovely to see you all. I did check very carefully for see whether there are any sixth formers in the room. But then I was told it was on the record anyhow, so didn't need to worry about that. So happy birthday, happy 20th birthday to the Global Strategic Forum, and it's lovely to see Michael's family in the front row. And I think for those of us who've had some association with it over the years, you know, what a valuable contribution he made. And the fact that this turnout is here is not for me, it's for Michael and what he's created 20 years on. So thank you so much for turning out today. And as I looked at sort of, I don't know, I was trying to think of the silvery distinction that fills this room. I suspect, you know, many of us were at the first meeting of the GSF, just not so many will remember it. Sorry, that joke just fell completely flat. But look, it's a real pleasure to be here. It is an intimidating audience, and there's a lot of experience in this room across government, diplomacy, intelligence, you know who you are, business and the media, and there's very little that I have to say that hasn't been said, I suspect, often rather more cogently by people in this room. So I'm not going to attempt a kind of formal lecture. Instead, I thought I would frame a discussion, and despite Jack's intimidating point, I mean, I think if people have got points to make, I think it'd be great to hear them, as long as they're short, Jack. Is that right? Yeah, that would be great. So I'll give you, the next 10, 15 minutes, a spook's eye view of the world that we find ourselves in, why it matters for the country that many of us in this room, well, all of us in the room, I suspect, care deeply about, even overseas friends serving in London, and many of us have served to the best of our ability, not least because we're only a couple of days from a fairly consequential election. Old habits of purdah die very hard, so I'm going to leave it to others to tackle the really difficult questions. You know, how the UK generates the growth it needs to stay at the top table, and how our political class persuades an electorate to accept the sacrifices required to keep us safe in a more contested world. As I reflect on a career that started back in 1987, there's a certain circularity, if not necessarily continuity, to be detected. I began, therefore, at the tail end of the Cold War. We then had a very big pivot as a community post 9/11 into counterterrorism. And now we find ourselves back fully in a world of state-on-state competition. But it strikes me that this is not a kind of simple Cold War redux. One particular difference for me, and something I wanted to reflect on with you this afternoon, was the way that the private sector is right in the middle of the contest, and technology has changed the character of that contest quite fundamentally. Which brings me, I guess, to my central point of the talk. It's the technology, stupid. It's not that concentration of technological power is new. The Industrial Revolution gave Britain a decisive early advantage that underpinned its global reach. But what's different now, it seems to me, is the speed, the compounding nature of those technologies, and the level at which power concentrates, not just in states. There are only a limited number that have possession of some of these key technologies, but in a small number of globally dominant firms. And that changes the tempo of competition and increasingly who holds the levers of power. And we in the UK need scale and speed to compete, and sufficient sovereignty to avoid unacceptable vulnerability. Technology is also transforming intelligence. I would say this, wouldn't I? But human intelligence is not going away. Access to people, their intent, their thinking, their plans remains indispensable, although your best agent nowadays may be a super user rather than a private secretary. Technology now permeates almost everything that we do. And I tend to think of it in three dimensions. I sort of ready reckoner for myself, the three T's: targets, the subjects that we are tasked on, the capabilities of adversaries in these key technologies, and their intent to use them, and that is both state and non-state actors. Tools, because they're very useful to us, particularly in how we identify, assess, and recruit, and how we operate. And threats, what's being used against us. And on that last point, you don't need me, and you wouldn't expect me to spell out in detail what AI can do when combined with the scale of surveillance data generated by states such as China, both domestically and increasingly overseas as they share their technology. The role of intelligence is, at heart, quite simple. It's to collect what others seek to conceal, to steal secrets, and provide decision advantage to those charged with acting. It does not remove uncertainty. And one of the things that over a career I found myself sometimes explaining to ministers was that it was MI6's job to steal secrets, not to solve mysteries. But it does reduce uncertainty, often just enough for decisions to be made. And in today's world, the side that can decide a little faster, using the data that they have, often has the edge over the side that ponders longer. And AI is key to winning that race. And all of that only makes sense to me within a clear strategic picture. And here I would be fairly direct. The People's Republic of China represents the most significant long-term challenge to the international system that has served us well, and to our prosperity and way of life. And that's not simply a military challenge, although that's clearly an element of it. It is a systemic competition, economic, technological, political. A patient, state-backed competitor seeking to shape the rules of the system while continuing to benefit from them. In the shorter term, we already have, in a sort of hybrid Game of Thrones across multiple domains, where China is often aligned, directly or indirectly, with malign actors such as Russia and Iran. The contest is already underway. Let me say a brief word on Ukraine, though I will happily come back to it in discussion if people would like to. Without China's support, economic, technological, and industrial, Russia would already be in a far weaker position. Arguably, it would have lost. We're not talking about divisions on the battlefield. but about the steady provision of dual-use components, industrial inputs, and economic lifelines that sustain Russia's war effort. That matters for two reasons. First, this is not a regional conflict. It's part of a wider strategic contest. Second, how we respond in Ukraine is being read very carefully elsewhere, particularly in Beijing. If we do not demonstrate a clear will to see Ukraine succeed, we should not assume deterrence will hold in other theatres. Ukraine is not only about Ukraine, it's also about the credibility of the West. And briefly on Iran, again, I'm very happy to come back to it in discussion. We're now in a very different place, self-evidently, from even a year ago. And what began as a shadow conflict has become an overt confrontation, direct strikes, attacks on regional infrastructure. Such a pleasure to see the Kuwaiti ambassador here, and his country, along with the other countries of the Gulf, are suffered badly from Iranian aggression. And of course, disruption to global energy flows, flows of fertilizer, flows of other goods. And a paranoid regime, ill-equipped to understand the United States, has hardened under pressure, with power increasingly concentrated in the hands of its security apparatus, and a willingness to escalate across multiple domains, military, economic, and cyber, as the gloves come off in response to unwise talk of regime change, which the regime may believe, even if we here in this room are less likely to be taken in. 2 points follow. First, the boundary between war and peace is now thoroughly blurred. Second, these theatres are connected. What happens in the Gulf, in Ukraine, and in the Indo-Pacific are not separate problems to be sorted out separately. They're different expressions of the same wider contest. So how do we respond? First, no country can navigate this alone. The answer lies in a carefully nurtured alliance of the like-minded, but we should be clear-eyed. Alliances are not acts of charity. They're not self-interested arrangements. Neither. They work when three things are in balance: shared interest, fair burden, and political consent. And that is as true of NATO and Five Eyes as any other alliance in history. And for quite a long time, Europeans, to put it at its most polite, have been slow on burden sharing. There are now signs of improvement, but we are not yet where we need to be. Security costs money. Resilience costs money. Hard power costs money. Deterrence costs money. And while deterrence is cheaper than conflict, as it almost always is, it's not cost-free. We need to prepare our publics for that reality. And at the moment, I see too little evidence that we in Europe are doing so with sufficient clarity. There's also a wider horizon we should keep in view. Beyond the geopolitical Game of Thrones, our climate is deteriorating fast, and we're on the cusp of creating forms of intelligence which, if mishandled, could pose risks on a scale we have not previously faced as a species. Put bluntly, we may succeed in building systems that could do us serious harm rather faster than we manage to make our planet unlivable. So alongside robust competition, a degree of international cooperation would not go amiss. Guardrails, particularly between major powers, matter. Connections between Washington and Beijing, however difficult, are not a concession. They are a safeguard for all of us, particularly in a world where crises can escalate faster than we can manage them. So in closing, to get our discussion going, the world is becoming more contested. The premium is on speed, integration, clarity of purpose. And for the UK, that means rediscovering the confidence, capability, and partnerships that have served us well. Thank you.
I've been to many GSF lunchtime lectures, and they've all been really good. This has been brilliant, Richard, and thank you very much indeed. We've had 12 questions. and 12 terrific answers as well. None of this would have happened, or could have happened, without the indefatigable work of Jacqueline Jinks. So, and you can see in what esteem you held, Jacqueline, because scarcely was your first part of your name out of my mouth before people started clapping and cheering. So, but thank you very much, because you're absolutely it's vital to the continued success of GSF. If anybody is here who's not a member of GSF, simply email.
How dare you?
What?
Oh, no, that's not what you
How dare you, yes. Well, your name will be taken, or maybe has already been taken. How do we know? But it's Jacqueline Jinks.
Very long, J Jinks at Global Strategy Forum.
There we are. Yeah. JJ at Global, J Jinks at, anyway.
You're on a board.
Ask Jacqueline on the way out. Yeah, but if you're not already a member, do join. Don't forget, on the 2 weeks today, on the 20th of May, as Gordon Correa, who's somewhere here, who's at the back, who's going to talk about Metrokin. And lastly, Richard, thank you very, very much for a wonderful lecture and for being, as we'd expect, so frank with us. It's been terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.